Hi guys! Today I want to show you how you can automatically request feedback from all your projects and clients. I'm going to take you into my Make account and together we'll see the 3 flows that you need to build to not only send a feedback request, but also send a follow-up email in case they don't respond 7 days later. Okay, so we are here in my Make account and we have the 3 flows that we will build together. The first one is responsible for sending the first request for feedback once the project or your deal is completely over. Then the second one will go through a Google Sheets that we will set up together and check whether or not this client has responded to our request for feedback, and if they haven't, send a follow-up email. And the third flow is the one that is going to keep track of all of the responses that we do get from our clients so that we are not sending follow-up emails to everyone. Let's review them one by one so you can get a better overview of what's going on. So this is our first flow. Personally, I will be using HubSpot to track all of the deals that I have going on. And so once this deal is marked as closed, the flow will be triggered. We will then go into my HubSpot again to get the contact information that is connected to this deal that just closed and send them an email. And then the final thing we'll do is I will update the Google Sheets where I will be keeping track of all of the requests that have been sent and the ones that have been answered. Then our second flow right here. So this is for the follow-up. So what we'll be doing daily is that we'll go into that same sheet and check whether or not the person has answered our request for feedback. If they haven't, we will send them another email and then we'll update again the sheets to say that, a follow-up email has been sent, so we're not sending too many follow-ups. And our final flow here, so what it'll do is that it'll watch for responses. In this case, all of my feedback will be done via Google Forms. So every time there's a new response in my forms, I'll go back to that sheet and inform that the client has answered my feedback, and also I will be inputting there the feedback that I received, so I can also keep track in the same sheet. And that's it. Now, real quick, I also want to show you what to set up before we get started. So the first thing we'll do is set up our Google Sheets. So here you just need to keep track of the deal's name, or the client's name, or anything you want. Then the name of the contact that you have for this client, their email. Then here we need to keep track of when the first email was sent on. We need to track whether or not this client has responded. We're tracking also if we have already sent them a follow-up email or not. And also here the rating. So this is the grade that they will be giving us in the Google form that we're sending. And the second thing you need to set up is then the form that you will be sending to your client asking for the feedback. So in here, I just have a very, very basic form, just asking for the person's name, the company that they work for, their email, and for them to just give me a grade from 1 to 5 on their overall satisfaction. And now that we have all of this set up, we can go ahead and start with our first flow. We'll start by creating a new scenario. And the first thing we want to do is that we want to watch for those deals that are now closed. So because I'm using HubSpot, I will use the HubSpot module. In here, I want to watch CRM objects. Here in my HubSpot, as you can see, I have here some deals. And right now, for example, let's take this one. So this one is in appointments scheduled. But what I want to do is that once all of this is done and I've gone through all of the steps and now I'm finally in my closed one step, then my flow will trigger, because this means that this deal has been completed and I want to send an email for some feedback. So let's go back to our flow. So watching the CRM objects. So I am tracking my deals. I want to check when they are updated, and I want the deal stage to be equal to closed one. So this is basically saying that every time a new deal has this stage, which means that it's closed, this should be triggered. All right, save. Let's save from now on. And then once we get this deal, we need to actually get all of the information that is associated with this deal. So what we have to do is that we need to list associations, again from the HubSpot module. Here we'll give it, well, first we have to say that it's a deal. The object ID is this ID from our previous module. And here we just want to retrieve the contact associated with the deal that has just closed, and we can save. Now, when the associations will be listed, the issue is that in the contact, we will only get the contact ID and not actually all of the information belonging to the contact. So we now have to go back to HubSpot and get a contact. And in contact ID, so this will be here in my associations, in contact, the ID of the contact that is associated to that. Okay, and save. So maybe we can run this once to see if it's working. Okay, so right now nothing happened because there was no change in stage, but actually let's change this one to closed one. And now if we run again, it was able to identify this one deal in list associations. In the output, in contacts, we only have the ID. And so that's why then in get my contact, we input this ID and we get the email. So this is what we needed. Okay, let me just go back here and change this again so we can retest it afterwards. And now let's keep going. So now what we have to do is just send an email to this person. So using my Gmail, I want to send an email. The recipient, so we will map this out here to our email from our previous module. The subject, I don't know, something like, we'd love to hear your opinion. We'd love to hear your opinion. Okay, and actually I'll just copy and paste what I have here because it already has the link to my forms and everything. So let's just copy and paste this. And then here in first name, again, let's map this out to first name right here. So we're just saying, hi, first name, thank you for working with us, and we'd really appreciate a feedback. I'm including the link to my Google Forms, and that's it. So let's save this. And now we do have to go into our Google Sheets and add this new row so that we can keep track of this email that was sent. So we'll add a row. My Google Sheets is client reviews. Okay. And here we can just map this out real quickly. So actually the deal name we will get from our first module, watch CRM objects. And that is here. In my case, I'm just putting the deal name, but feel free to map out to whatever you want. And then coming back here, so contact name as first name, the email sent on, and this is where we'll go here and use this function now to input today's date. And that's it. So we can save this and let's run it again. So we'll go back here to our HubSpot account and change this to closed one. And now let's run our flow. Everything seems to be working. Let's check out the email. It was sent with hi Paul, awesome. And if we go back into our client reviews, we now have a new row with our new project, the person's name, their address, and right here we have the date that this was sent on. Perfect. All right, so let's set up our second flow. Let's imagine that the email that we sent was actually sent over 7 days ago and we haven't heard from our client, so we haven't received the feedback that we really need. What I want to do now is send them a follow-up email to remind them that we still want their feedback and that it would be very important for us to get it. So the first thing I will do is go back into my Google Sheets and search rows. So I want to find those rows where the clients haven't answered my request. And here we want to actually set up 3 different filters. The first one is that the email sent on is earlier than 7 days ago. So for this, we can scroll down to time operators and say, datetime operators and say earlier than. And here we'll just input this formula. So add days now, and because we want it to be over 7 days ago, -7. Then our second rule is that responded is equal to false, because we want to get the rows only for those clients that have not answered our feedback form. And then lastly, here in follow-up sent, I want this to be equal to false as well, just because I only want to send each client one follow-up email, but feel free to change this if you want. Save. And now that we have retrieved all of these rows, we can now send them an email. So again, send email. Let's map out the recipient because we got their email in our spreadsheet right here. The subject, let's just copy what's on here. But just telling them that, would still love to hear from them. And then we can just change this right here and say, hi, person's name. So in our case, this is the contact name in our spreadsheet. Just a quick follow-up. We'd still love to hear your thoughts. I'm including the link to the form again, and then just thanking them for their time, and we can save. And now the last step is to go back into our Google Sheet and update a row. So going back to my clients' reviews, what I want is for that same row that we identified right here, so that's that same row number, I want to update the follow-up sent from false to now to be true, so that the next time that the flow runs, it won't be included anymore and the client won't be spammed by emails daily asking for feedback. Let's save. And now before we can test this, we have to go back into our Google Sheets and change the date here because this was sent a few minutes ago. So if I run it, it won't be picked up by my flow. So let's just change this to, it was sent actually last month to make sure that it is going to be picked up. Oh, this one. And now we can go ahead and run. So it was able to pick up the email that we sent that was over a month ago. Awesome. It created an email. And now if we go back here for that same row, we have now updated this to follow-up sent. So now if I rerun the flow, it won't be picked up anymore. And we can test this again. Yep. So this came out empty. Awesome. All right, and now for our final flow, what we want to do is that we want to keep track of all of the responses that are coming in through our feedback form and update our client review document so that, the responded column is actually true and they don't receive a follow-up email. So let's set up our trigger. I am using Google Forms, so what I want to do is watch responses coming in. My form ID, I can just copy this right here. Okay. And we can save from now on. Now we can test this to see if it works. So real quick, I can just send a response. I don't know, example at gmail.com, and I'm giving it a 2. Doesn't matter, it's just to test. All right, and we did get one. So the email, let's see, yeah, it's working correctly. My trigger is working just fine. So now that we have this trigger and we were able to retrieve that email, we want to go back into our Google Sheets and retrieve that same row that belongs to the same email. So we want to search rows. Again, in my client reviews. And we need to set up the filter so that the email in the client reviews is equal to the answer that we got from here. So email, text answers, and the value. Okay, save. And now that we have identified that same row, we need to update some of the values there. So again, Google Sheets, update a row, just like before. The row number is the row number from the previous module. And now what we want to update is that the responded is now actually true, because we have received feedback from this one client. And here in rating, we can go ahead and add here their answer. Maybe it's in text answers. It's better. Yeah, let's just go with this. So the value is in text answers, value 2. All right, let's save. And now let's send a new response to see if our flow is working correctly. So I'm going to go back here, submit another response. Again, this doesn't really matter. What is important here is that my email matches the same email that is here. Otherwise, the flow will not work. Right here, and let's give it 3 stars, submit, and now go back here and run once. And it seems to have worked. So it found my response here. It was able to find the correct row. And let's check here. It was able to update it as well with responded yes, and even added here the 3 stars that I gave myself. Perfect. So there you have it, guys, a full automation that automatically requests feedback from all your clients at the end of your project and also follows up in case you don't get a response for 7 days. If you guys enjoyed this content, please like and follow. And for any automation needs, feel free to contact us at asandir.com.